Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the GradCracker webinar featuring the London Stock Exchange Group. So everybody will have heard of the London Stock Exchange, but this webinar will hopefully give you a bit of an insight into who they actually are, what they do, and a bit of a behind the scenes glimpse. And we're going to hear more about the recruitment process and more from the grads a little bit later on. We were meant to be joined by Aisling, so we are going to try and get her on the call. Aisling's aware of the recruitment process and everything else, but if not, we're going to go back to the grads and get the hints and tips and what they experience as part of the whole recruitment process and when they joined London Stock Exchange. So for now, I'm going to lean towards Jared, and Jared, you're going to give us a bit of an update to who the London Stock Exchange is and all about you, if that's okay.
Yes, sure. Thanks, Carla. So the London Stock Exchange Group, we are a global FMI, which is the financial markets infrastructure and data company. And the group as a whole can be broadly split into three different pillars or sections, which are data and analytics, which comprises primarily of the FTSE Russell and Refinitiv businesses, focusing on, as the name would suggest, providing data and analytics platforms and indexes across a wide range of geographies. And then we have our capital markets pillar, which is probably the most well-known section of the business, which is deals with the exchange itself, giving our customers access to capital markets and liquidity, not just across the London Stock Exchange, but across multiple asset classes and geographies, with the various different acquisitions that we've made over the years in that pillar. And then the post-trade pillar, primarily comprised of London Clearing House, LSEG, supports customers in clearing and reporting obligations. And then underpinning all of these three pillars is a large technology services, which helps all of these different businesses to function and also to collaborate with each other.
Yeah, and as a grad, are you able to go into all of the different pillars, or are you just focused in one area? How does that work?
The graduate scheme has two different streams currently, although this may be subject to change in the near future. The business stream focuses on the post-trade, capital markets and data analytics pillars, with rotations within each of the three pillars, across the three pillars.
Yeah.
You typically do two rotations, and you'll have flexibility over which of those you go into. And then the technology graduate scheme works in the technology section, but as I mentioned previously, these roles also span across the entirety of the business.
Yeah, thank you very much for that introduction. And what we're going to do now is one of our favourite rounds as part of these webinars is a quick fire round to let all the audience know some exciting facts about London Stock Exchange. So Amelia, I'm going to start with you. Could you give us your quick fire fact?
Yes, so my fact is that
Oh, Amelia, we can't hear you. You might have to start again.
Is there? No.
No.
Bless her. I don't know if she's still going though.
I don't think Amelia can hear us. Jasper, could we move on to you? Could you give us your fact?
Yeah, so my fact relates to the data analytics that Jared was talking about. We carry up to 176 billion market messages every day from over 150,000 data sources, serving over 40,000 institutions across the world.
Wow, that's some big figures. Amelia, can we just
hear us now, Amelia? You back?
Hello?
Hello. Yeah. Amelia, you cut off there and your mouth is still moving.
Oh no. Sorry about that.
Fascinating, but can you start again?
Yeah, so sorry.
Yes,
so the London Stock Exchange was the first exchange to launch a dedicated green bond segment in 2015, and it was also the first exchange to introduce a green.
Okay.
Amelia,
and for those who don't know, the green economy mark basically recognises companies and investment funds from all segments of the main market and AIM that derive 50% or more of their total annual revenue from products and services that contribute to the green global economy.
I was going to ask you that. Cool. Thank you very much, Amelia. Jared, on to you. Your exciting fact.
So the London Stock Exchange Group is actually, I guess, a very large mishmash of different acquisitions over the years. And between 2010 and current date, there have been 7 major acquisitions across the group, culminating with the purchase of Refinitiv. The Refinitiv merger is currently still being completed, and see us moving to the top 10 largest companies in the FTSE.
Is there any plans to move forward and acquire any more businesses, Jared? Do you know, or am
I wouldn't be able to. You'd have to ask someone in group strategy for that sort of question. But the Refinitiv acquisition was very large. I'm sure anyone that's read up about the stock exchange recently and seen it in the news will be aware of this. So yeah, I think it may be a while before the next acquisition.
Yeah, take a breath. That's what we need to do. Thank you very much, Jared. And what we're going to do now is move on and meet the grads in a little bit more detail. Amelia is concentrating on her sound, so I'm going to go to Jasper to start off with. Jasper, so could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, so your background, where you went to uni and what did you study?
So I was born in London, but grew up and was schooled in France up until going to university.
Yeah.
Then I went to the University of Durham, where I studied general engineering, and I specialised in electronics in my final 2 years. And my transition to my current developer role was facilitated by my final year research project, which I purposefully selected for being computer science and programming heavy, as opposed to more of a traditional engineering research project.
And what made you come to this decision to study electronics in your final year at university then? What made you think, oh, I'm going to really focus in that area?
So the general idea behind a general engineering degree is that you kind of experience all of the different areas, and then work out which one suits you best. And a lot of people, in my experience, find that one of the divisions just makes much more sense to them inherently than the other divisions. And so for me, it was electronics, but I had lots of friends who had much more ease in understanding mechanical engineering, for example. So I went off into that direction.
And then from your electronics to focusing on computer science in your final year, why did you choose to focus on computer science? And then how has that helped you with your career so far at the London Stock Exchange?
Well, I suppose the reason that I decided to concentrate more on computer science was because I wanted to pivot into more of a software engineering career rather than a traditional engineering career. So in projects in second and third year, I sort of got to know programming quite a bit more and decided that I liked that quite a lot more than the other engineering that I was doing and wanted to work in that sector. I also saw that, in my opinion, there are more opportunities that I wanted to partake in the sort of software engineering role, which is why I sort of made the decision to pivot into that direction.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jasper. Aisling, you're on mute if you are going to join us. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Well, that was slightly stressful.
That was stressful. Sorry I'm late. Never a dull moment, and you can always anticipate someone to have tech issues. I'm actually on my phone in the office right now, so apologies at the random angle here.
No, that's fine. Welcome, Aisling.
Thank you.
What we've done is we've just had a brief introduction to the grads. We've gone through the quick facts. So is it all right, Aisling, if I just bear with us for a couple of seconds? We're just going to speak to Amelia and Jared a little bit more, then we'll come back to you.
Yeah, no rush at all.
I hope you're not going to get arm rake. Your poor little arm.
Be fine.
It'll do your muscles good. So Amelia, I'm going to go on to you now. So same question that I asked Jasper. So where did you go to university and what did you study?
I think Amelia's just sent me a message on Teams and she can't hear, unfortunately. So she can't really hear what's going on.
That's fine. I thought she looked puzzled. That's normally my look, and I can hear what's going on. Jared, I'm going to go over to you then. Same questions, uni, and what did you study?
Sure, yeah. I was at Cambridge University and I studied economics with a specialization in development economics. And then transitioned now into my role in sustainable investment within the data and analytics sort of pillar.
So development economics, what is that? Why is that different to normal economics?
It's a good question. Development economics essentially is the study of why different countries and regions develop at different rates to others. Looks at a lot of constraints to development and ties in quite nicely actually with the sort of topics that are being discussed right now in terms of ESG and how we can help enjoy sustainable growth as a global economy rather than just as single regions.
Oh wow, I bet that's really fascinating. I didn't know you could do that. Thank you, Jared. Hopefully we can come back to Amelia when she rejoins the webinar. But for now, Aisling, I'm going to come back onto you. You've got two opportunities which are currently live on GradCracker. You've got your technology summer placement and your business summer placement as well. Could you just tell the viewers watching a little bit more about those? So what's on offer?
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes,
We can.
Great, just worth checking that as a first step. So sure, absolutely. So we are currently running advertising for our 2022 summer internship programs. The way our graduate and summer internship programs are organized is you have a business stream and a technology stream. Each stream encompasses a variety of teams that sit under that banner. So within business, you could be going into a product role within data analytics, for example, or a more risk-focused role within post-trade, or you could be going into more of a relationship manager type role within capital markets. So there are a variety of roles within the divisions, but essentially the business program covers capital markets, post-trade, data analytics, and corporate functions. And then specifically within corporate functions, the types of roles that we tend to get for our interns and grads are more kind of strategic. So, potentially more M&A focused role or more of a strategy type role. And then within technology, it's a variety of teams that program covers. So it could be, and roles as well. So you could be going into more of a software developer role or more of a business analyst type role or more of a project management type role where you're working with the business team and the relevant tech team to make sure that certain technical or technology projects are getting over the line. So it's a 9-week program. It involves 1 week's initial induction. And following that, the structure is that you spend 4 weeks in one team and then you move into a different team for the second 4 weeks, with the view being to enable you to explore, the variety of career options that you might be considering at this point. And across the 9 weeks, we offer classroom-based learning, exposure to senior leaders within the business. You'll have a buddy and a mentor, and a range of other kind of development focus sessions that the early careers team would run.
perfect.
Hope that answers the question okay, Carla.
It does, yeah. I've got a couple of more questions to ask on the back of your answer, Aisling, if that's okay. So firstly, you've got two streams that you've just mentioned there. Obviously for both streams that you would accept STEM students, this is who we're promoting those to today. Would you say each stream has a specific type of person who you would who you see people applying to the opportunity? So is there a bit of this type of person normally applies to the business, this type of person normally applies to technology, or is it completely open?
It's a variety, and I'm keen to get Jared, Jasper, and Amelia's thoughts when they're all back in the meeting. It's because the roles are so varied across both streams. We're looking for and the skills and strengths required across those roles is slightly different. We don't have a specific type of person. What I can say is we're looking for people across both streams. We're looking for people who are genuinely curious. That's nice. Hi, guys. Genuinely curious about financial markets and have a passion and interest in data.
Yeah.
So an ability to understand and analyze data to draw practical solutions and practical recommendations is super important. And the interest in financial markets is pretty obvious. And then, individuals who are able to connect the dots and think strategically. So part of the reason why we have individuals rotate is because LSEG covers the entirety of the trade life cycle. And it's really important that our grads and interns can understand how the different divisions contribute that, and for technology specifically, how technology supports the business with that.
Yeah.
And then technology in particular, you know, this is going to sound very obvious, but you do have to demonstrate a genuine interest in technology. And going beyond that, I would say demonstrate exposure to it in a practical sense. So whether you've worked with a particular type of technology previously, or done an academic project or an extracurricular project where you've used a specific technology, or whether you've got, you know, you've learned how to code, or you've got a certain level of knowledge in a programming language. We are looking for that kind of really, really demonstrable interest and aptitude from that perspective.
Perfect. Thank you very much. What I'm going to do now, Amelia, you're back.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, technology these days, honestly, we should still use carrier pigeons. So Amelia, I'm going to come back to you now. So where did you go to university, and what did you study, and why did you choose to join London Stock Exchange?
Yes, so I grew up in Switzerland and moved over to the UK in about 2007, and kind of from even when I was young, really interested in science and technology. So I ended up actually studying physics at Durham University. And I kind of found that I really enjoyed my degree, but I also found myself kind of drawn towards the more technical aspects. So things like learning to code. So I structured my module choices kind of around that. And in particular, I took one module, which is a large research project looking at basically mathematically modeling financial trends. So that kind of gave me a small insight into the kind of fintech industry, and my kind of enjoyment of the project just motivated my decision to apply. And yeah, that's why I ended up here.
Brilliant.
I think it's really interesting. I think there's been a couple of you guys who have mentioned on the call about really structuring your modules and structuring your degree to be able to, you know, enhance your skills for when you do join London Stock Exchange or get a career afterwards. And I don't think that's something that we've come across quite a lot, Jess, as part of these webinars. And so it is really worth you thinking, you know, whilst you're at university, to look at your modules and look at your final year, and then think for the future. So that's something that students watching can take out of today's webinar. So thank you very much, Amelia, for the introduction there. Ashley, I'm briefly going to come back to you. Timelines. So you mentioned the two opportunities that you've got available. So what are the timelines that students need to be working towards? So for example, closing dates, and then assessment centres and everything else, please.
Absolutely. So the application deadline is midnight on the 5th of December.
Yeah.
But we do recruit on a rolling basis, and what that means is we're starting to review applications now.
Yeah.
So it is better to get your application in before that deadline. I would say significantly before that. So to give everyone an idea, for the business summer internship program, our first assessment centre will be on the 8th of December.
Yeah.
So if you're someone who leaves your application to the 5th, there's no way you'll be able to get through all the stages of the process for us to invite you on the 8th. Now, we do have later assessment centres running, but just to maximise your chance of success, I'd get your application in sooner.
Yes, apply today after this webinar. Jess, over to you. I am going to look a little bit puzzled because I'm going to rename Jasper. So if I look like I'm concentrating, it's because I'm doing that.
That's fine. Guys, I'm going to start talking about your roles now, if possible, and just kind of getting a bit of an insight into what life is like for you all now at the business. So, Jared, I'm going to come to you first. If you could kind of talk us through where you are at in your current role and what your experiences have been so far.
Yeah, sure. I joined LSEG as a graduate a couple of years back in 2019. Yeah. I went through the graduate program. I did rotations in capital markets, in a strategy team there, and then in sustainable investment in FTSE Russell, where I am based now, in their product team. My current role in the product team focused around designing, maintaining and developing strategy for our sustainable investment products within FTSE Russell. And these are things like green data products, so carbon emissions, company ESG ratings, fossil fuel reserves, as well as some more advanced measures, and then also the development of indexes off the back of that. So spend a lot of my time working with large asset managers, large asset owners, developing their products, and then also working internally on the more strategic side of things.
And how big are your teams then that you tend to work in, Jared? Is it just you working directly with, say, a client, or do you work in groups which then look after your clients? How does that work?
So the group as a whole has actually really increased its focus on ESG and SI, sustainable investment, a lot in the last few years. And so the team that I'm currently working in has grown from a team of 4, comprising of 3 in London and 1 in Paris, like a few years ago, to a team of what is now, I think we're 13 in EMEA alone, and we also then have teams based in Hong Kong, New York, and Australia supporting us. And so depending on what the product is and what the ask is, team sizes can range from being, as you mentioned, just myself dealing directly with stakeholders, to global teams working across all geographies to support our clients.
And how do you find that, working as an individual than working as the, teamwork? Is there anything that you prefer? Do you prefer, having a client on your own and managing the situation, or?
I do enjoy collaborating with others. Maybe a bit less so when the calls with the guys in the US and it's 8 p.m. But those are few and far between, luckily enough. But yeah, I enjoy working a team and enjoy kind of directly getting involved in meetings with clients. And I think that especially as we've now started kind of returning to office and getting more in-person interactions with people, I do think that's quite an appealing side of working in my role. There are opportunities definitely to work on more long-term projects by myself. I'm not sure I'm coming out here. I'm a bit choppy on my end. I hope that you got that all okay.
Yeah, you're fine. You broke up a little bit there, but you're all right.
Okay, we'll move from you, Jared, to Jasper. If you could tell us a bit about your current role and where you are at in your current position.
So, well, I started the graduate program at the beginning of September, so I didn't join my team that long ago.
Yeah.
But I'm a graduate developer for the market data team at the London Clearinghouse, and my role essentially consists of taking ownership of development tasks from start to finish as part of a Scrum team. So the idea is you take projects and you divide them up into multiple releases, and each release is divided into several prioritized tasks. So I will take one of those tasks that I think I'm particularly suited to and sort of run it from start to finish. And once I've done that, I'll then move on to another task, with the aim of all of the tasks being completed in a sort of 2-week period.
Okay.
As I've just started, I've also received a large amount of training to develop the technical skills that are required for my role, which has included knowledge transfer sessions to teach me all about the different technologies we use, and also more formal training such as courses in Java.
Brilliant. Okay, so we're going to touch upon the learning development, but by sounds that you've had a lot of support there, which is good. How have you found the kind of onboarding process, the saying goes? How have you found starting in September? What's the teams been like? I'm guessing you're in the office. Is that kind of 2 days a week or partially at home? How's all that looking?
Yeah, so we started off with 2 weeks of sort of formal training to prepare us for joining our teams in the office, and that was really, really useful from both a technical point of view, but also just sort of communications and the sort of requirements that you need within a working team. And then in the office, I'm coming in 3 to 4 days a week, which seems to be quite a lot, but most people try and do about 3 days a week in the office and 2 days a week at home. And in terms of joining my team, everyone's been extremely welcoming and helpful. I mean, I've asked so many questions that I actually started to feel a bit embarrassed, but every time you ask another question, people are really friendly and I'm more than happy to help. We'll dedicate lots of time to helping you with your query and always make sure that you get the answer that you were expecting or that you were hoping for, kind of thing.
Yeah. If you were to reflect on the experiences that you've had so far since September, is it as you imagined it to be, or is it quite different?
Yeah, I suppose it is. There's been even more sort of support and training and stuff like that than I even imagined before I joined. But aside from that, it's been what I'd expected.
Brilliant. That's good. Amelia, I'm going to come to you next. Same question. If you just tell us a bit about your current role that you're in.
Yeah, so I'm working as a quality assurance engineer in the Forex Clear department of the London Clearing House.
Yeah.
So basically that means I spend the majority of my day creating automated tests, which are then kind of deployed onto the Forex Clear system. And yeah, I've been really enjoying it. The foreign exchange market is the largest financial market in the world, and within Forex Clear, we clear 98% of global foreign exchange trades. So it's been so nice to be part of a company that's so integral to the financial market. And yeah, it's also been really nice that obviously in order to be able to write the tests or create the tests, you do have to have quite a good understanding of kind of the business aspects of things. Yeah. So not only have I been able to develop my kind of technical skills, but it's also given me a really good exposure to the business side of things as well. So yeah, I've been really enjoying it.
Brilliant. And in terms of a typical day, what does that tend to look like for you, Amelia?
So I'm a member of the quality assurance team, but similarly to Jasper, I work within a Scrum team, and basically a Scrum team, it's formed of people with all sorts of different roles. So there's business analysts in my Scrum, there's developers, then there's us, the lot who work in kind of quality assurance. So it's a real mix. So every morning I have a daily meeting with both my quality assurance team and with my Scrum team. And that's just such a brilliant way to start the day, because you all touch base, everyone knows what's going on. You have to speak about what you've done, what you did yesterday, what you're doing today. So also you always want to make sure that you've been productive the day before and can say, I've got this done. And then, so that's kind of all out of the way in the morning. And then we use a specific software that kind of a scheduling system, which puts out all of our tasks, and I'll look on the system to see what I've been assigned, and then basically spend the rest of the day working both individually and with other members of my Scrum team to kind of solve the tasks. And yeah, that would be kind of a day-to-day.
Yeah, fantastic, interesting. Jared, I'm going to come back to you just to talk about projects, and if there's a particular project that you've been involved in so far that you want to talk about, or maybe has been super interesting.
Yeah, sure. The project that I guess I've been involved in, which is the most interesting one, is ongoing and relates to Paris-aligned benchmarks. So some of the participants may be aware of the Paris Agreement signed back in 2016 with an aim of kind of reducing global emissions and reaching a net zero economy by 2050. And so we are launching a series of indexes. My team, as part of this new regulation, which are Paris aligned, and this involves kind of using multiple data sets and looking at companies' carbon emissions and their climate governance targets they're setting, and rating their sustainability to essentially have a series of indexes that will constitute a net zero investment. So by aligning your investment, or by investing in these indexes, you will be aligning with the Paris Agreement and contributing towards achieving a net zero by 2050 goal. Go ahead, Jessica.
Yeah, how do companies, is it for a certain size businesses that can get in this index, or how is it a range?
Yeah, it's across a range of universes, ranging from global indexes to quite specific UK subsets. And they're actually, I think, the first of these indexes launched today. So,
oh, really?
It's been a long project in the works, and we're finally sort of reaching the end of it. But it's an ongoing process that I might have gone for a little bit there. A lot of the data that's required for these indexes isn't fully available yet, and I think that this reflects that kind of the massive growth in sustainable investment. The focus right now is that going forward we're looking to put more data in and have a more comprehensive view of how companies are contributing to our global economy. For example, a big topic right now is Scope 3 data, and we're looking at Scope 3 carbon emissions data, which takes into account what companies purchase and the carbon emissions that are involved in the products that they are consuming in order to create their products. And so this is a lot of work, especially, and also a lot of more technical people than myself going out and scraping this data and building methodologies for this data. But that's an ongoing discussion as part of this index series.
That's so interesting, isn't it? Do you know, maybe I've been hiding under a rock, but I didn't actually know this was actually happening. So this is so interesting. So when this launched today, one particular index, and what was that called?
The index that launched today is quite specifically named. It's I can't remember the exact name of it.
No worries.
It's a Paris-aligned benchmark. You'll see them marked by PAB, but it's actually a custom index. It's for a specific client, so you might be able to find this one if you're googling for it online. But that was just to give an indication that these are things that are coming out in the near future or right now.
It gives you a good indication of what, you know, like I say, it's going to look like in the future and where the markets are going, which is really interesting. Thanks for that, Jared. Jasper, coming to you next, same kind of question. I know you've only been there since September, but, you know, I'm sure you've done a lot in the last few weeks since you've been there, but what's your favourite project that you worked on so far?
So my team essentially is the market data team within the London Clearing House. So our role is to gather all of the financial data required for the London Clearing House from sources like Bloomberg, Refinitiv, Market, and then we sort of analyze, we process it and then send it off to the respective departments. For example, Forex Clear that Amelia works in. But so one of the projects we're involved in at the moment is it's an upgrade to the entire method of how we receive this data, how we analyze it, and how we then distribute it to each of the downstream stakeholders, with the idea of greatly reducing risk and increasing the accuracy of the data used, in order to make the London Clearing House's operations much more streamlined essentially.
Okay. Can I ask a question, Jess? You've been mentioning London Clearing House. I'm just conscious that our viewers might not know what that is. So could you explain what the London Clearing House is?
So LSEG is a group, and essentially it has multiple companies sort of within that group. The London Clearing House is one of those companies, and they fulfill all the post-trade functions for the group. So once a trade has gone through, everything to do with the exchange of securities and monies and all of this risk clearing and regulation checking, so sort of everything that happens after trade is done, it's processed by the London Clearing House.
Right. And is that every trade, or is that only certain trades that are, say, of a certain size? Or
so it is the size of the trade, so it doesn't depend on the size of the trade, but we're not the only clearinghouse in operation in the UK or the world, but I think we definitely are the largest in the UK market.
Yeah, it's also not all trades have to go through clearing, but no, we are definitely we dominate the clearing market
in the UK.
Okay. So when I'm buying my shares, for example, that would 9 times out of 10 have to go through. It's not a lot of money. I'm not a big gambler, but my tuppence a month. But that would 9 times out of 10 go through London Clearing House.
Yeah. So you'll be going through a broker, but yeah.
Perfect. Now I know what happens when I click that button.
Yeah, I'd love to have a one-on-one with you guys and just proper pick your brains instead of doing it in front of the nation. Where I can really show how, you know, my knowledge isn't up on all this. But yeah, it'd be interesting to really kind of delve. Amelia, come to you next. Favorite project you've worked on so far?
Yeah, so I've worked on various projects for my team, but one project that I've really been enjoying, or it's only just got started. It's basically all of the technology graduates are kind of embarking on a 6-month-long cybersecurity project together.
Okay.
And it's kind of early days at the moment, but basically very simply the company are wanting us to come up with some form of program which can correctly identify and protect against cybersecurity threats that kind of enter the system.
Yeah.
So yeah, this has been really nice because also a lot of the graduates have been scattered between different teams. So having the opportunity to work together is really nice.
Yeah.
Also, cybersecurity is not something I've worked on before, so it's giving me exposure to a new area and different softwares and things like that. And it's also nice because it's giving me the chance to work with not just other graduates but other members of the company. And 6 months will be quite a long time for a singular project. So I'm expecting us to make quite a lot of developments and things.
Sure. And then with the idea of this project, potentially if you come out with something that the business wants to run with, is the idea that they would use that idea and put it into place, or
hopefully I suppose it depends how we perform, but
I think the aim of the project when it was thought up by the business was to have something that they could put into place. So unless we get it very wrong, it should.
Jasper's being positive. He's like, no, we can do this, we can get it through. So how does it all work then there? If you work on this project at the end and you think, I've got the product here, this is what I want to present, do you have to present that to somebody to sign it off? How does it become real?
Well, we have weekly meetings with the kind of project manager. So he'll be checking in to make sure that we're on track and kind of going in the right direction, and then I presume it will come from him kind of actual sign off at the end, provided everything works.
But then we've also got bi-weekly meetings with some of the directors of information
and kind of stakeholders and things of the project. So
there we have to sort of present our progress, and they'll give us feedback as to whether or not we're doing what they expect.
Oh, brilliant. It's a good chance for you personally to be, kind of be involved with those directors at, people at that level as well, isn't it? So that's a great opportunity as an individual and as a group to do it. How many people will be in the group?
I believe, there's 12 of us working together. So it will also be quite interesting. I don't think I've ever really worked on a project with a group of that size. So the actual organisation of it and things as well will be a new experience.
Yeah, it'll be good fun.
Yeah, that would be good.
Fingers crossed.
Yes. Aisling, are you still there? Hopefully she is.
I am. I just turned off my video because I didn't want to distract from everyone else, and I wanted to rest my arm as well.
I thought that was the case when I saw your name pop up on screen. So I just want to hear from you, from your point of view now. When a student joins London Stock Exchange, what sort of hand-holding development do you give them? I know the guys have mentioned like a 2-week quite intensive training program, but do you say how, if you are successful, do you keep in touch with the students before the start? And then what's the first week looking like for them?
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of keeping in touch, this year's cohort, actually, we organised a couple of social events. So there was one chocolate tasting event, which we had to have virtually because it was during lockdown at Christmas time. And then we ran another event earlier in the year. That's something that I'm personally working on, is getting better at I suppose what we call our keep warm kind of communication. So actually I'm working on a new project where I'm preparing a kind of learning advice sort of tips document, which will have different learning tips and the anticipated duration. So people who have a year until they're joining us will have literally a list of things that they can be working on and learning in between. But also all of our grads get a buddy before they join, and our summer interns as well. So in terms of that perspective, let me actually just ask Jasper and Amelia, have I forgotten anything in terms of lead up support?
We also had the virtual escape room.
Yes, that was the other one. The chocolate tasting in the escape room. So that's more to enable kind of more of a social bonding side, and then from the more kind of learning and advice and development, that side, that's what I'm working on. I think we could be better at. Then in terms of their sort of induction, you've already heard a little bit about the 2-week induction, which was luckily in person this year, which was really great.
Yeah.
And that was a mixture of technical and I don't like saying soft skills, so I'll say more like business skills training.
Yeah.
So things like training on financial markets by an external provider we use, training around VBA, which I know all of them love, and macros, and then the tech grads had agile training as well. Then we had the Center for Inclusive Leadership delivering training around communication and your personal brand.
Yeah.
And then once they join, to give you an idea of what's coming up in October, we have, a monthly development discussion, which is run by my team, and that will be around a topic that, we feel is going to be useful. So last time it was around a book called Atomic Habits. So it's about building habits to enable success.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a discussion around that. Then we have meet the management sessions where the grads get exposure to, leaders within the business. We have a Cloud Academy session as well. And then the technical kind of skills sessions are more kind of scattered throughout the rest of the program. And later on in the year, we have more of, I suppose, coaching focused initiative plan, but I don't want to say too much in case these guys haven't heard about it yet.
Yeah.
So that will just give you a bit of an idea.
Oh, you don't want to spoil the surprise, do we?
No.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Ashley. It sounds like you've got a really good plan to keep students warm between offering it and them starting as well. I know you mentioned a little bit before, Jasper, about your training and development that you've experienced so far. So I'm going to go to Amelia. Could you just mention to people watching what could be in store for them when they start London Stock Exchange from a training and development point of view?
Yes, so, well, as Ashley said, so we have a kind of that 2-week onboarding process where you cover a huge kind of range of topics. And then once I then joined my role, I had role-specific training, not only technical training, but also, as I said, understanding exactly what a clearinghouse does and Forex clear in particular, so more role-specific training. But also we receive training throughout the year for different topics. So, for example, one piece of training we were given during our onboarding was to do with AWS, or Amazon Web Services, which is a cloud computing platform. And as technology graduates, we're actually going to be sitting an exam to become a AWS cloud practitioner.
Okay.
And so since joining, we've been given access to basically an online portal where there's materials and resources available. Ashley wants to say something. Hand up.
You can finish, Amelia, and then I'll jump in.
And so yes, been provided access to that, and there's lots of resources and materials there. We're also sitting in ITIL examination. We'll receive resources for that, but throughout the year we also have we had some training last week about kind of our development and meeting objectives. We have more financial markets training. So, you've got so many opportunities. Yes, so that onboarding, then more role-specific training, but it doesn't end there. There's always more opportunities and things like we have access to lots of learning resources online. So you can even go ahead and do your own independent learning. If you'd like to. So yeah, there's so much on offer, which is just brilliant.
Ashley, did you want to say something?
Yes, sorry, I forgot about professional qualifications, which is key.
Yes.
And Amelia just alluded to it for the technology programs. That's the ITIL certification, which stands for Information Technology Infrastructure Library. And for the business program, the business grads do the IMC, which stands for the Investment Management Certificate. So I just wanted to add that because that's quite key.
Yeah, very important. Thank you very much, Ashling. Jared, is there anything else that you want to add with regards to learning and development that you've experienced?
I guess that the learning and development for recent joiners has been well covered there, but I would like to point out that LSEG as a whole does have a a strong motivation towards continued learning and development after you leave the graduate program. As someone who has recently left the graduate program, I'm about to start ESG Investing Qualification, which will be fully funded by the group. And so your continued learning and development is definitely kind of prioritized beyond just when you're a graduate with the group.
And what will that qualification enable you to do then? So why would that be so important to you?
The CFA ESG qualification is specifically in relation to sort of asset owner best practice in terms of ESG investing methodologies, and is quite specific towards the career path that I want to take in terms of enabling you to better understand what our clients' needs are, and dare I say it in front of Aisling, but also to be more marketable myself within the field. But I also know that other graduates from my year have taken other qualifications, or are taking things like the CFA Level 1 qualification, which I know is a very common one that people often ask about.
Yeah, so there's lots of potential there for you, isn't there, to learn and develop yourself. I'm going to come to Amelia and Jasper now, because I know you're tag teaming it a little bit there. But from a student's point of view, you know, watching and preparing for their first day at London Stock Exchange, what advice would you give them? You know, any hints and tips? How would you let them know how to prepare?
So are you saying as someone who's successfully kind of gained stock?
They've gone through all the assessment centres and everything else, and they're thinking, right, okay, so first day, I know it's going to be in a year's time, but what advice would you give them?
Well, I think, to be honest, I know it's very cliche, but be yourself a bit, because there's not, you know, everyone's really welcoming, that you're really looked after when you join, and I don't think you need to be worried about you know, having the best financial knowledge and things like that. That's what all the training's there for. Yeah. And yeah, I think the onboarding process is set up really well. So it's something I really wouldn't worry about. Just relax and enjoy it. Speak to as many people as possible. And yeah, just
be yourself.
Be yourself, yeah.
No, I think that is quite key. I think we're going to move on to the future now, Jess.
Yeah, so what we'd like to know, if there is a plan, you never know what is around the corner, but if, you know, what's the long-term plan, and, you know, can you see yourself staying, you know, within this industry sector, for example, staying with LSEG? So Amelia, I'm going to come back to you. What's your future plans?
Yeah, so I mean, short term, obviously the graduate scheme is comprised of 2 different rotations. So I'm currently on my first rotation, and then we'll switch teams in March. And I think I've been really enjoying the development aspect of my role at the moment. So I might try and look for a role that's slightly more focused on development and coding and things like that, just to give me a bit more exposure to that area. And then in September, I'll roll off the graduate scheme into a permanent role. And I mean, at the moment, as I said, I've been really enjoying working in Forex Clear, so I'd love to return there. And then kind of longer term plans, I think I'd really like to stay within financial technology. Basically, I've been really enjoying it. And yeah, I can just imagine myself staying in the same industry for the foreseeable future.
You never know, it might be cybersecurity, Amelia.
Yeah.
Jasper, same question, come to you.
Yeah, so within this particular 6-month rotation, I'm working on my developer sort of skills. So automation testing, but professional development skills, and even perhaps at the end of this rotation, working with cloud migration skills. So hopefully I'll have had those quite well developed by the end of this rotation. And then in the next one, I'd quite like to perhaps join a cybersecurity team, either that or one more focused on the business side of the company. However, it does, in the end, it is also down to the requirements of the company at that given time. So I could want to join a cybersecurity team, but if there is no position in a cybersecurity team at that time, I'd have to sort of choose something else. But either pursue my software development training or go into more of a business role. And then I'm going to roll off into a team within my pillar section, so within post-trade, the London Clearinghouse, in which I want to spend at least a year, and then maybe move into a sort of different sector within the company, just to sort of carry on that continuous development that we have throughout the graduate program. And then in the sort of long term, I think quite similar to Millie, I would like to stay within financial technologies. It's something that I've really enjoyed for the relatively short amount of time that I've been here, but I can see myself carrying on in that direction for quite a long time.
And I think that's the key. So you've been here since September, but you know already that is hopefully going to be the long-term goal, which is great. And Jared, same question. What does the future hold, if you've got a plan?
Yeah, who knows within sustainable investment. I think that I definitely love the field and want to stay within SI going forward, but it's such a rapidly growing and changing field. I think that looking at it now, definitely LSEG and FTSE is a great place to be, because it's just growing so rapidly and there's so many new roles emerging in the field that you can easily see opportunities and a way forward. And if that continues, then in the future I see myself staying here and hopefully taking one of the many new roles that come up as and trying to grow with the sector essentially. Other than that, maybe go and do a year out to do a master's or in environmental economics or something like that. But certainly this is the field that I want to stay in. I think LSEG is a great place for that.
It's almost like the perfect storm for you in a sense. You know, you're getting into this area at quite a perfect time, aren't you? And you know, you're going to be, you know, when it fully gets up and running, I can imagine you're going to be quite a professional within that little sector of you know, having all the knowledge that you've gained so early on. So yeah, it's very exciting. Next we want to talk about benefits, if that's okay.
Can I just ask Jared a question? Because you mentioned before, Jared, about speaking to your colleagues in Hong Kong, you mentioned in America. Is there opportunities to travel abroad at London Stock Exchange? Is that feasible, or are you predominantly based in the UK?
I know from anecdotal experience within the SI team, people that have moved between regions, and certainly I know multiple examples of people on my graduate scheme that have travelled. I actually, when I was short-term travel, that is, definitely, I went to Italy when I was in capital markets to spend some time in Milan. That was back when the group owned Borsa Italiana, which is no longer the case. But certainly there is the opportunity to travel, and I think that depending on where you end up in the group, the scope maybe more or less. For example, LSEG doesn't have so much of an international presence, but I guess that's a matter of, if it's a focus for you, then you can definitely make it happen. Yeah.
And what you mentioned about your masters, Jared, is I don't know if this is a question to you or Aisling. Would Jared kind of leave London Stock Exchange and possibly come back, or does London Stock Exchange help with other skills like getting a master's?
Yeah, I can take this one. Again, it depends on the area that you're in. It's a business decision. For example, a graduate from the last intake, Craig, who was in my team, is currently sitting a master's, which is he's working with the SI research, the Sustainable Investment Research team, in order to get funding from LSEG, with the aim of him doing his master's in a field that's relevant to our business, and then coming back and working within the SI research team following that.
Oh, wow, brilliant. Possible. Yes, the help with any opportunity. Thank you very much, Jared. And I think we're going to quickly come on to key benefits of working there before we go on and finishing off with Aisling and the recruitment process. So what would you say are the key benefits, Amelia and Jasper?
Well,
I love that look, Amelia. Just like a That was the right, that
You
was the
can have
right
this
diva
one.
look. You can do this one.
So from my point of view, as in the stage I'm at, I'd say the key benefits are all the opportunities for personal and professional development. So for me, it's manifested itself in two ways. The first one is the continuous both formal and informal training offered throughout the program, which we spoke about earlier. So the AWS Cloud Practitioner, the ITIL programming courses, but also networking events and knowledge transfer sessions to sort of understand your team a bit better. And then secondly, this is something that Jared has spoken a bit about. We've also spoken about the rotational structure of our scheme is all the opportunities for learning about a wide variety of sectors whilst you're here. Particularly thanks to the multiple areas that the group is involved in and the fact that you can rotate sort of in between all of those different areas.
Yeah, the opportunities in training and development there just seem huge. So thank you, Jasper. Amelia, you didn't hear me laugh then.
I completely agree, and I just think it's been really obvious. Particularly, I think all the training is something that's really stood out, especially as a technology graduate. I've been shocked and kind of nicely surprised at how much training I've been given on the business side. And I don't think that's offered at other places, or it's not perhaps as important. But no, my kind of financial knowledge has really improved, and it's just brilliant when that might not necessarily be a priority for someone working in technology. So yeah, it's so important that you're a completely well-rounded person there, though, isn't it? Thank you, Amelia. Thank you, Jasper. Jared, on to you.
Yeah, I would definitely reiterate the points that both Amelia and Jasper made around the benefits that they feel the group has. But I also think that the group has a really nice culture as a whole. And equally, the different areas of the group do also have slightly different cultures. Each are definitely great places to work at. But it also allows you to sort of get a feel for which culture fits you best. And I feel like everyone is super welcoming and super friendly at the group. And I know from speaking with friends who work elsewhere that isn't always the case and isn't something necessarily you can take for granted when you join a company. And so I think that's a really key benefit about working here.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much, Jared. Aisling, on to you. So I think we're going to finish off now with the recruitment process. So a student would obviously go on to GradCracker, either choose to apply to the technology or the business summer internship, and then you take them, and then what do you do with them? What's the process?
Sure. So the first step is submitting your online application and uploading your CV. So let me just recognize, first of all, I know that can be painful to everyone. So thank you to everyone who goes through the time and effort to do that. It is really important to tailor your CV to the program you're applying to and draw out the key skills that we're looking for, which you will find in the job description. And think about how you can demonstrate your impact. So we are a financial data provider, so we love any quantifiable data. So if there's a way you can quantify your impact across the work experience you've done or your extracurriculars, just try and put that in there. Otherwise, you can use qualitative comments to demonstrate your impact. One thing I just wanted to flag is that for the first time this year, we've included a new question on our application form, which asks about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on your ability to secure work experience. So this is a recognition of the fact that some of you may have had work experience withdrawn or may not have had the same opportunity to secure it due to the various lockdowns that we've been through. And we want to take that into account when we're screening your CV. So it's important, if you have been impacted in that way, to tell us how, whether that was an opportunity that was withdrawn, if so, what that opportunity was, or why you couldn't apply for anything or secure anything, and then tell us what you did anyway to develop yourself. And it doesn't matter what it is, if it was reading different books, doing some e-learning courses, connecting with people in the sector, just tell us about it, and that way we'll be able to take that into account when we review your application. It's really important to us to make sure we're factoring that in. And then the next step is the online assessment, which is an SHL test. The tests we use test numerical reasoning, inductive and deductive reasoning. So the biggest piece of advice I can give there is to practice. There are loads of practice tests online. If you're really keen and committed, you can even purchase a practice kind of package.
Okay.
I think there's a site called onlineassessment.com or assessmentday.com or something like that. And if you have a friend who's always, you know, flying through them, do it with them, get them to talk you through what they're thinking. That can be quite helpful. Then it's a telephone interview. So in that, we're going to be assessing your motivation for the program, for LSEG, and then assessing your alignment to some of the key competencies that we look for. I don't think any of those competencies are hugely surprising. So what I would say on that is just write down a list of what you've achieved and what your examples might be across different experiences, whether they're academic or extracurricular or work experience, and literally write down what competencies you think that they demonstrate the best and the most effectively. And for anyone who's not used to a competency-based interview, consider using the STAR technique to structure your answers. So it's really important you talk through context, what you did, and then the impact. And then the last stage is the assessment center. So that'll be virtual this year. We review our approach every year, but last year we had a case study interview. So you get case study materials, 30 minutes to review them, and then you go into a 45-minute interview. We had a group discussion, and we had another kind of motivational / competency-based interview.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, I'm hoping that we've inspired everybody who's watching today to get their applications in. And remember, as Aisling said, don't leave it until December. Apply today. Mention to Aisling that you've watched this fantastic webinar as well. You know, it's all part of the experiences and it shows a passion that you have for the London Stock Exchange Group. So thank you everybody for joining us today. Thank you, grads, and thank you, Aisling, as well, for joining us on this webinar. Oh, it's been a stressful one. And next week we are joined by, I said this to Amelia before we started, she was smiling away. I said, these webinars are quite stressful. And she was nodding along. I was like, this is
I know
why.
how you feel, Paula. I know how you feel.
This is why. Next week, me and Jess we're staying in the financial sector, actually. We're joined by Lloyds Banking Group. So for now, go and take a look at the London Stock Exchange Group hub on GradCracker, apply, and good luck. And me and Jess will see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Good luck.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.